Zossen, Germany. Wehrmacht High Command Intelligence Center. August 1, 1944. 11:23 p.m. The room smells of stale coffee and cigarette smoke layered so thick it's become part of the furniture. Colonel Friedrich Adolf Krummacher sits at a desk covered in maps, intelligence reports, and photographs of American tank formations. His eyes are red-rimmed from 60 consecutive hours of trying to solve a problem that shouldn't exist. George S. Patton has disappeared. Not metaphorically, not strategically, literally vanished. The entire 3rd United States Army, 12 divisions, 250,000 men, thousands of tanks and vehicles, has broken out of Normandy and is now somewhere in France, moving so fast that German intelligence loses track of them between morning and afternoon reports. Krummacher stares at a map where red pins mark confirmed American positions. Yesterday, those pins formed a coherent line. Today, they're scattered across 200 miles of French countryside like someone threw them at the map blindfolded. His assistant, Major Hans Meyer, enters carrying another stack of reports. His hands shake slightly. Meyer hasn't slept either. Sir, we have new reconnaissance from Luftwaffe. 3rd Army formations confirmed at Avranches. Krummacher checks his map. Avranches is the breakthrough point, the hinge where Normandy opens into Brittany and central France. Confirmed at what strength? 2 armored divisions, 1 infantry division, moving south at approximately 40 kilometers per day. 40 kilometers. That's impossible. No army moves that fast. Logistics don't allow it. Supply lines can't stretch that far. Fuel doesn't magically appear where you need it. And the rest of 3rd Army? Meyer swallows. We've lost contact with at least 6 divisions. Radio intercepts suggest they're heading east, but we can't confirm positions. Krummacher sets down his pen very carefully. When you set down writing instruments carefully, it means your hands want to throw things but your training won't allow it. You're telling me that we've lost track of 250,000 American soldiers? Yes, sir. And their commander? General Patton was last reported in Avranches this morning. Current whereabouts unknown. Krummacher lights another cigarette. His 10th this hour. The smoke curls toward the ceiling where it joins the fog of 1,000 previous cigarettes smoked by intelligence officers trying to understand what George Patton is doing. They've been trying to understand for 2 years. They've failed for 2 years. And now Patton is loose in France with an army that moves like it's on rails. And German intelligence has no idea where he'll strike next. Get me Fremd here's West, Krummacher says quietly. Foreign Armies West, the department that studies Allied intentions. And wake up Colonel von Wren. Tell him we have a problem. If you've never heard what German intelligence actually said about Patton, you're not alone. History remembers him as America's most aggressive general. But the Germans saw something else. A commander who broke every rule of warfare they'd written, whose army moved at speeds they calculated as impossible, whose strategies defied prediction models built on 2 centuries of military doctrine. Hit subscribe because you're about to witness what happens when genius meets bureaucracy, when one man's aggression shatters an entire intelligence apparatus, told through the frantic reports of German officers who couldn't believe what they were seeing. The German intelligence community didn't start August 1944 confused. They started it confident, methodical, precise, everything the Wehrmacht prided itself on being. German military intelligence, the Fremd here's West FHW, was considered the best in Europe. They'd predicted French collapse in 1940, anticipated British strategies in North Africa, forecasted Soviet movements on the Eastern Front with reasonable accuracy. They operated on models, mathematical, predictive, based on logistics and doctrine. How fast can an army move given road capacity? How far can tanks travel before refueling? How long does it take to establish supply depots? What's the maximum frontage an infantry division can defend? These weren't guesses. They were calculations derived from decades of military science, tested in war games, validated in actual combat. Then Patton arrived, and the models started breaking. June 1944. Pre-invasion analysis. Before D-Day, German intelligence compiled comprehensive dossiers on Allied commanders. Eisenhower, cautious, methodical, political. Montgomery, Slow, methodical, thorough. Bradley, competent, conventional, reliable. And Patton, the file on George S. Patton Jr. was thicker than the others combined. Born 1885, California. West Point graduate. Tank commander in World War I. Arrogant, aggressive, reckless, brilliant tactician, terrible diplomat. Once slapped a soldier suffering shell shock. Nearly court-martialed for it. The Germans knew about Sicily, where Patton commanded 7th Army in 1943. He'd raced Montgomery to Messina, turned a supporting role into a starring one, captured the city through sheer speed and audacity. Patton's weakness, the intelligence summary concluded, is his aggression. He overextends. He prioritizes speed over consolidation. His supply lines are vulnerable. His flanks are exposed. Contain his initial thrust, counterattack his exposed positions, and his advance collapses. The theory was sound. It was based on solid military doctrine. It assumed that Patton fought like a normal general. He didn't. July 1944. Operation Fortitude. The Allies played German intelligence like a violin. Operation Fortitude, the deception plan, put Patton in command of 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, a phantom army supposedly preparing to invade Calais. The Germans bought it completely. They believed FUSAG was real because they believed Patton was too important to waste on Normandy. In their assessment, Patton was America's best general. Therefore, Patton would command the main invasion. Therefore, FUSAG was the real threat, and Normandy was a diversion. Colonel Alexis Baron von Wren, head of FHW, staked his reputation on this analysis. He reported to Hitler personally, "Normandy is a feint. The main invasion will come at Calais under Patton." Hitler believed him. Panzer divisions stayed near Calais, waiting for Patton's phantom army. Meanwhile, real Allied forces bled against real German defenses in Normandy without the reinforcements that could have pushed them into the sea. Then, on July 6, exactly 1 month after D-Day, Patton arrived in France. Not to command FUSAG, to command 3rd Army, a real army, already assembled, ready to exploit the Normandy breakout. Von Wren realized he'd been deceived. The shame was overwhelming. For a Prussian intelligence officer, being outwitted wasn't just failure, it was dishonor. Von Wren would later be arrested for involvement in the July 20th plot to assassinate Hitler. He was executed in October 1944. Some historians believe his shame over the Patton deception contributed to his decision to join the conspiracy. When you've been fooled that thoroughly, when your mistake costs thousands of German lives, what do you have left to lose? August 1st, 1944. Operation Cobra succeeds. The American breakout from Normandy begins with Operation Cobra, Bradley's plan to punch through German lines at St. Lo. When it succeeds, a 30-mile wide gap opens in German defenses. 3rd Army pours through that gap like water through a broken dam. Patton's orders are simple: drive like hell, no methodical advances, no consolidating positions, no waiting for infantry to catch up, just speed. Constant, relentless, overwhelming speed. Within 48 hours, 3rd Army advances 40 miles, a distance that should take 2 weeks. Within a week, they've advanced 100 miles. German intelligence scrambles to update maps that are obsolete before the ink dries. At Zossen, Krummacher receives reports that contradict everything he knows about warfare. 3rd Army advanced 60 kilometers in 24 hours. This exceeds maximum calculated speed for mechanized units by 300%. Recommend verification. The reports are verified. Patton's tanks are moving twice as fast as German calculations say is possible. How? August 3rd, 1944. Fremd hears West emergency assessment. Krummacher assembles his analysts. On the table, reports, maps, photographs, intercepted radio transmissions. The evidence of something they can't explain. Gentlemen, help me understand what we're seeing. 3rd Army is moving at speeds that violate every logistics model we have. How is Patton doing this? Captain Wilhelm von Schramm, logistics specialist, speaks first. Sir, the only explanation is that he's ignoring supply doctrine. Normal procedure is to establish supply depots every 50 kilometers. Bring up fuel and ammunition before advancing further. Patton isn't doing that. Then how is he fueling his tanks? He's just moving forward and trusting supplies will catch up. He's captured German fuel depots and using our own petrol against us. He's cannibalizing vehicles that break down for parts. He's operating on margins so thin that one German counterattack cutting his supply lines should stop his entire army. Should stop him, Krummacher repeats. But doesn't. No, sir. Because he's moving so fast we can't organize counterattacks before he's already gone. By the time we identify his supply lines, he's advanced another 50 kilometers and the supply lines have shifted. Another analyst, Major Otto Hartmann, adds, Sir, there's something else. Patton's formations don't follow standard deployment patterns. Normal doctrine is to advance on a broad front, maintain contact between units, secure flanks. Patton is sending columns deep into French territory with miles of empty space between them. Krummacher studies the map. It's true. Third Army's positions look like fingers stretching into France. Narrow penetrations with huge gaps between them. This is insane, Krummacher says. His flanks are completely exposed. If we counterattack from the sides, we cut off his spearheads, surround them, destroy them. Yes, sir. But to organize counterattacks, we need time. And Patton doesn't give us time. His columns move faster than we can reposition forces to hit them. Then we need to predict where he's going. Get ahead of him. Set up blocking positions before he arrives. This is the logical solution. The professional solution. The solution that should work. Doesn't. The prediction problem. German intelligence tries to forecast Patton's movements using standard military analysis. Analysis 1. Geographic objectives. Patton will advance toward Brittany ports. American logistics require deep water harbors. Brest, Saint-Nazaire, Lorient, these are strategic objectives. Recommend reinforcing Brittany Peninsula. Patton sends one corps toward Brittany. The rest of Third Army turns east, toward the interior of France. Analysis 2. Enemy strength concentration. Patton will avoid our strongest defensive positions. He'll seek routes of least resistance. Recommend identifying weakest points in our line. Patton attacks the strongest point, the Falaise Gap, where German 7th Army is trapped. He punches through and encircles them. Analysis 3. Logistics constraints. Patton's supply lines are stretched 200 kilometers. He must halt to consolidate. Estimated pause. 5 to 7 days. This gives us time to prepare counteroffensives. Patton doesn't halt. He captures German supply depots, commandeers French trucks, puts his quartermaster on planes to literally airdrop supplies to advancing units. His logistics are chaos, but they're fast chaos and fast beats organized. Every prediction model fails because they're based on one assumption, that Patton will fight rationally. He doesn't fight rationally. He fights aggressively. And aggression, sustained at speeds German doctrine considers impossible, becomes its own strategy. August 12, 1944. Intelligence report to Hitler. The report is compiled by multiple intelligence departments. It's meant to be comprehensive, analytical, actionable. Instead, it reads like a confession of failure. Subject: Third United States Army Strategic Assessment. Current situation: Third Army has advanced 300 kilometers in 12 days. Average speed: 25 kilometers per day, exceeding projected maximum by 400%. Forces are reported at Chartres, Le Mans, Orleans, and multiple unconfirmed locations. Enemy commander: General George S. Patton Jr. demonstrates complete disregard for conventional operational doctrine. Prioritizes speed over security. Accepts risk levels we calculate as suicidal. Yet achieves objectives before defensive positions can be established. Tactical assessment. Patton employs reconnaissance in force as primary strategy. Sends small, fast-moving columns deep into our rear areas. These columns report enemy positions, supply routes, weak points. Main forces then exploit gaps before we can reinforce. His tank commanders operate with unprecedented autonomy. Rather than waiting for orders, they advance independently toward general objectives. This creates coordination problems but also generates speed we cannot match. Strategic assessment. Traditional prediction models are ineffective against Patton. He does not optimize for security or consolidation. He optimizes purely for speed and aggression. This creates vulnerabilities, but he moves too fast for us to exploit them. Recommendation. Cannot provide reliable forecast of Third Army movements. Suggest shifting from prediction to reaction. Deploy mobile reserves capable of rapid response to Patton's penetrations. Classification. This assessment acknowledges intelligence failure. Our models are inadequate. Recommend fundamental review of analysis methods. Hitler reads the report and scrawls in the margin. Excuses. Stop him. But you can't stop what you can't predict. And German intelligence has admitted they can't predict Patton. August 15, 1944. The race to the Seine. Third Army is now racing toward the Seine River, the last natural barrier before Paris. German intelligence estimates it will take 3 weeks for American forces to reach the Seine, giving them time to establish defensive lines. Patton reaches the Seine in 6 days. At Zossen, the intelligence staff has stopped making predictions. They just track movement and react. Meyer bursts into Krummacher's office with the latest reconnaissance report. Sir, Third Army crossed the Seine at multiple points. They didn't even wait to build bridges. They used captured assault boats and ferried tanks across at night. Krummacher doesn't look up. He's drawing red arrows on a map, trying to visualize where Patton might go next. The arrows form a pattern that looks less like military strategy and more like abstract art. Have we lost Paris? Krummacher asks quietly. Hitler ordered Paris defended to the last man. That's not what I asked. Have we lost it? Meyer hesitates. Third Army is 15 kilometers from the city. Our forces in Paris are undermanned, undersupplied, and surrounded. Yes, sir. We've lost Paris. Paris falls on August 25th. Third Army doesn't liberate it. That honor goes to French forces, but Patton's advance made it inevitable. The city Hitler ordered held was abandoned because holding it meant being cut off by Patton's columns racing east. September 1944. The analysts break down. Captain von Schramm, the logistics specialist, suffers what modern medicine would call a nervous breakdown. After 2 months of watching Patton violate every principle of military logistics he's ever learned, something in his psyche fractures. His final report before medical leave is found in the archives after the war. It's unhinged, desperate, the work of a man whose professional world has collapsed. Patton's army operates in defiance of physical laws. They move without adequate fuel. They advance without secure supply lines. They fight without proper reserves. By every calculation, Third Army should have stalled in mid-August, collapsed by September. But they haven't stalled. They haven't collapsed. They're now approaching the German border, 600 kilometers from their starting point, having advanced farther and faster than any army in history. I no longer trust my own analysis. I can calculate fuel consumption, ammunition expenditure, food requirements. But Patton doesn't care about my calculations. He finds fuel where none should exist. He captures enemy supplies. He steals, improvises, ignores regulations. How do you predict a commander who operates on instinct rather than planning? How do you counter a strategy that has no strategy, only aggression? I cannot answer these questions. I recommend reassignment. Von Schramm is sent to the Eastern Front, where Soviet offensives at least follow predictable doctrine. October 1944. The real problem emerges. Krummacher finally understands why Patton is impossible to predict. It's not because Patton is unpredictable. It's because German intelligence is asking the wrong questions. They keep asking, what will Patton do? They should be asking, what does Patton want to do? The difference is subtle but crucial. Traditional military planning. Study the situation. Identify objectives. Calculate optimal approach. Execute plan. German generals do this. British generals do this. American generals do this. Except Patton. Patton starts with what he wants to do. Attack, move fast, hit the enemy before they're ready. Then he figures out how to make it possible. He doesn't let logistics dictate strategy. He makes logistics adapt to strategy. This is backwards. This violates military doctrine. This shouldn't work. But it does work because Patton has something German intelligence can't quantify. An army that believes in him completely. His soldiers don't question why they're moving so fast. They don't complain about stretched supply lines. They don't worry about exposed flanks. They trust that Patton knows what he's doing, and that trust becomes a force multiplier more powerful than an extra division. German intelligence has no model for morale as a strategic weapon. They can count tanks, track divisions, calculate fuel consumption. But they can't measure the fact that Third Army soldiers will drive all night on empty stomachs because Patton asked them to, confident that he'll get them fed eventually. November 1944. Patton at the German border. Third Army reaches the Siegfried Line, Germany's western fortifications. In 4 months, Patton has advanced from Normandy to the German frontier, covering 600 miles, liberating most of France, and destroying multiple German armies. The intelligence assessments have become almost poetic in their frustration. Third Army advance has slowed due to supply constraints and hardening German resistance. General Patton is reportedly furious at being ordered to halt. He considers rest and resupply a waste of time. Conventional analysis suggests Third Army is exhausted, overstretched, incapable of sustained offensive. However, given Patton's history of defying conventional analysis, we hesitate to predict he will remain static. Recommend maintaining maximum alert for renewed Third Army offensive despite apparent impossibility of such action. The recommendation proves prescient. December 16, 1944. Battle of the Bulge. Germany launches its last major offensive, a surprise attack through the Ardennes forest. The goal: split Allied armies, recapture Antwerp, force a negotiated peace. The attack catches American forces completely off guard. Within days, a bulge 50 miles deep is driven into Allied lines. The situation is desperate. At SHEF headquarters, Eisenhower asks his commanders, "How fast can you disengage from current positions and counterattack north into the German penetration?" Most generals say 5 days, maybe a week. You can't just turn an army 90 degrees. You need to plan routes, coordinate logistics, brief commanders. Patton says, 48 hours. There's silence. Everyone thinks he's joking or insane. "George," Eisenhower says carefully, "Third Army is fully engaged on the Siegfried Line. You're asking to disengage 3 divisions, move them 100 miles north through ice and snow, and launch a coordinated attack in 48 hours. That's not possible. Watch me." German intelligence receives reports that Third Army is disengaging. They predict, based on every model they have, that Patton will need minimum 7 days to reposition. Patton attacks in 48 hours. 3 divisions will north like a door swinging on hinges, smash into the southern flank of the German bulge, and begin rolling it back. At Zossen, Krummacher reads the report and laughs. Not from humor, from exhaustion, from the sheer absurdity of spending 6 months trying to predict a man who exists to prove predictions wrong. "He did it again," Krummacher says to no one in particular. "We said it was impossible, and he did it again." January 1945. Final assessment. The war is nearly over. Germany is collapsing. But Fremdheers West compiles one final report on George Patton, partly for the record, partly as a warning to future German intelligence officers who might face similar commanders. Final assessment. General George S. Patton, Jr. Tactical characteristics.